Well, isn't she beautiful after a nice Friday evening bath in the summertime?
It is Friday night before Labor Day weekend. I cannot believe it's already the end of August. Man, where did that go? I have been working my butt off. Working hard at work, working hard at home, house, cars, and this past week, working on my bike. About 6 hours, I think, for a nice job that is a success, which I'll tell you about. Man, I was looking forward to this ride tonight. So I got my bike. When I took it for the test ride, before I bought it, I really tried to listen and feel and all that for anything that felt amiss. It's kind of hard if you don't have experience riding a lot of different bikes, I think, to pick up on things. Maybe that's just something that comes with age, but age or experience. Anyway, it was good. I obviously liked it and bought it. And what I noticed pretty quickly was if I had to brake hard or moderately brake, there's a little click noise that would happen in the front end. And like going at this speed, it didn't really matter what speed, but just going down the road, if you just kind of gave the front brake a little hard enough squeeze, you'd feel it in the handlebar. You could hear it a little bit, a little click click. And I was like, that's kind of weird. So I did some research online. This bike has dual front disc brakes, and the brake rotors are those floating rotors, a two-piece held in place by, I'll call them rivets for lack of a better word, but people said, oh, it's just those floating rotors because they're not solid. So I just figured it was the rotors, but it just didn't seem like that was the right thing. And I put up with this for over a year, and it was really starting to bother me this year. It's like, what is this noise? So back to the interwebs, I started a thread on HD forums. I posted a video I posted this video. And when you look at that, you can see there's a lot of travel in that front suspension. And what is with that noise, right? And so people came back with a number of different plausible things that cause noise like that. The most common is the steering head bearings that are a little too loose, or somebody even said a little too tight. Another one was if the fuel tank bolts aren't torqued to spec, they can make that noise as the tank moves. And then there were questions about, is it in fact the brakes? So I had to eliminate what I can by process of elimination. And finally the prevailing opinion was that it's the forks themselves, the front suspension. There's something going on in there, and that's where I should be looking. So next, the question was, what is the best plan of action? The cheapest thing to do and the least amount of work would be take off the forks, drain the old fork oil, and put in new oil, put it all back together, see if it's any better. But to do that on the Harley Dyna, you have to take off the front wheel, suspend the brake calipers, take off the front fender, loosen the triple tree clamps, and you have to take the fork tubes out off the bike. You have to pop the cap off the top, which is under pressure. Then you can drain them, refill them, and then reverse to reassess. assemble. So that is a good bit of work. Now, the thought of doing all that and it not solving the problem was not appealing to me. And then having to take them all apart and do more invasive fork work, and that's usually what happens with me. It's never the simple thing. It's always the more involved thing. So I did a lot of research on what my options are. And what I finally decided to do was purchase a new set of springs. I purchased progressive springs for my bike. They are not anything different in terms they're not heavy duty or longer length, or they're designed to be a stock replacement, same performance, same ride height, just a better spring than stock. So I bought those. They were 99 bucks. To install those, not too bad, pretty much the same process as changing the fluid, but there's a whole bunch of stuff down in the bottom of the fork in the area called the slider, which could be suspect also. There's an oil seal, there are O-rings, bushings, there's not a valve, but like a plunger type thing. So I thought, you know what, if I'm gonna do it, let's just do it. So I bought a couple fork rebuild kits from Harley. They were about 40 bucks each, and they have all the wear items, everything you need to fully service a fork. And I needed to get a couple of special tools, not too expensive, and then just some miscellaneous stuff, some new oil. And then I just had to plan it out and decide when I was going to do it. So I did it during the week. One night I put the bike up on the lift and attached some ratchet straps and dismantled the front end, you know, got the forks off. And it was kind of funny seeing the bike all hung up like that. Somebody said it looked like it was in labor. So one of the first things I did was to measure how much fluid was in the forks. And it turned out to be about 22 ounces, maybe 22 and a half. It's supposed to be 26 and a half. So there was about 4 ounces, which is a half cup, missing. That's a lot of fluid. And truthfully, that probably was it. I probably could have just replaced the oil, filled it to the correct level, and the bike would have been fine. But I'm going to have this bike for a while, and I decided, like I said, let's just do it. So I took the forks completely apart. I replaced all the wear items, inspected everything. That was the other thing. I wanted to see what was going on in there, and everything was in good shape. So I put it all back together, filled it with the new oil, put in my new springs, and put the bike all back together. So while I had the forks off, I decided to spend another hour of labor and take off my steering head and inspect the bearings, which were fine. My bike has 20,000 miles on it, by the way. And so I wanted to clean those bearings and repack them with grease. That's something you're supposed to do at 30,000 anyway. So I figured, since I have the bike, 80-90% of the way there dismantled, let's just do that. So I did that. Put it all back together. I took before I even took a ride, I did another test of the front suspension in my garage, and the difference was immediately noticeable, dramatically different. And so this is my first real ride. I did take a short 2-minute ride, and I gotta tell you, there was so much wrong with the front end of this bike. It wasn't just that click noise. This thing nosedive when I hit the front brakes. And it didn't really register until I was diagnosing this click noise that, yeah, there's something wrong here. And I guess when you ride something every day or almost or regularly, you don't notice things as they deteriorate gradually. But I stopped over a friend's house who has a Harley Dyna Fat Bob, and his front end was totally firm and no issues. And he looked at mine and he was like, yeah, you got something going on there. So it's done, and it is like, wow, what a different bike. What a different bike. I mean, when I hit the brakes, even if I brake really hard, it doesn't dive. It's nice and firm. And just the rideability. I used to notice that sometimes when I would go over like certain cracks in the grooves in the pavement and stuff that were kind of parallel to the tire, it would make this weird, I'd get this weird sensation in the handlebars. Like, what is that? You know, I never had problems like this with my Sportster. My Sportster was smooth as silk. And the Dyna is a bigger, heavier bike, supposed to be, you know, better. And I'm like, there's no reason, like, there's got to be a reason for this. This can't be the way they make the thing. And so now that it's all done and fixed, and I hit these things in the road, I don't feel that weird sensation anymore. Basically, the ability of my front suspension to handle braking and bumps and imperfections was really diminished, really poor. So I am super, super happy. It's all back together. I washed it up real nice. It looks fabulous. It feels great. And there is one caveat to this whole story. And in the back of my mind, I wondered if this was going to happen. I get on the bike, I start heading down the road, and I'm like, man, the rear suspension really stinks. Yeah, the front suspension is so much more improved. I am now noticing every bump on the back. The front is great. The back is like suddenly the weak point. I guess that's the way to put it. Before, the whole bike was sloppy, I guess. So I'm not spending any more money on this thing this year. But who knows, you know, maybe next year we'll do some rear shocks. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I'm hoping we're good clear into the end of December, because I want to do a lot of riding before I got to park this thing. I hope everybody's well. Till next time.